Tonight on The Buzz, Ned Soltz, the contributing editor for Digital Video Magazine, returns with an update on the latest cameras and camera technology, along with advice on how to pick the best camera for your next project. Next, Serena Catania, the supervising producer for The Buzz, is in Berlin attending the Berlinale Film Festival. She has a first-hand report on the films that are screening, along with trends in movie making that has everyone talking. Next, Aaron Rabinowitz is head of marketing for Red Giant and the executive producer of Red Giant Films. He joins us this week with an update on brand new releases from Red Giant and a look at why they, as a software developer, continue to make new films. All this, plus Tech Talk, a Buzz flashback, and Randi Altman's perspective on the news. The Buzz starts now.
Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by Otherworld Computing at MacSales.com and by ImagineProducts.com, the workflow experts.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts.
Production.
Filmmakers.
Post-production.
And content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
And welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Mike Horton has the night off. Next week, The Buzz is heading to London and will originate from the BVE Expo at the Excel Centre. BVE is the UK's largest event for professionals involved in media. It attracts in excess of 15,000 visitors from more than 60 countries and combines seminars with a trade show. They've invited me to speak at several sessions where I'll be talking about storage and gear and the impact of the internet on media. And I figured that since we were already there, we'd bring the Buzz along. So the great folks at Kit Plus offered us their studio, which is on the show floor, to allow us to explore the world of media from a UK perspective. It should be great fun. So be sure to tune in next week when we'll be speaking with a British accent directly from BVE in London. Also, I want to remind you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue, every week, gives you an inside look at the Buzz, quick links to all the different segments on the show, and curated articles of special interest to filmmakers. Best of all, every issue is free. I'll be back with Ned Soltz right after Randi Altman's perspective on the news.
This is Randi Altman's perspective.
Randi Altman has been writing about our industry for more than 20 years. In fact, she's the editor-in-chief of her own website, which is postperspective.com. Randi is on the road this week. We've managed to nail her feet to the floor. And Randi, welcome back.
Thanks, Larry. Good to be back.
So where are you and what are you doing?
I'm currently in Indian Wells, California, and at the HPA Tech Retreat.
Now, the HPA, which I learned last week, stands for the Hollywood Post Association, is an organization of post-production companies. What are you talking about there?
Well, actually, here at the show, they announced a new name. So they're now the Hollywood Professional Association.
The Hollywood Professional Association. Why?
Yes, they felt that was more inclusive, so that's their new name. And they also announced that Leon Silverman, who was one of the founding members of the HPA and the HPA's president, has stepped down, and Seth Hallen from Sony has taken his place. Leon will still be on the board and will still be very visible within the HPA, but he has stepped down as president.
Well, what does the HPA do? What's its role in life?
Well, so it began as an association for post-production professionals, creatives, and then manufacturers got involved as well. So they do their HPA Awards in November, where they celebrate talent. And here at the Tech Retreat, there are tons of sessions on all sorts of topics, and we touched upon that last week as well. But it's all about education and building community.
Well, you were talking that you're at a tech retreat. Is this like a trade show, or is it more of a conference?
It's a little little bit of both. They have an exhibit floor, so you can take a look at some gear if you want, but most of it is conference time. So you're in a room and you're learning.
Sounds like a return to school. One of the things I'm curious about is what are some of the hot topics? What are they talking about? More business or more creative?
More creative, absolutely. More creative, more technology, where things are going, the importance of metadata in OTT workflows. Everything is metadata. The importance of metadata has never been higher. So there's a lot of that. There was someone from NASA talking about technology yesterday. There is an HDR session going on right now, where an earlier HDR session, there was a nice debate between HDR and 4K. Some people just don't believe in 4K. They felt like maybe it was pushed upon them, and they really do believe that the image looks better thanks to high dynamic range. So that was a debate that was going on earlier in the week. It's been a fun show. What struck you the most as you're listening to all these conferences? How engaged the audience is. I mean, it's a big room, and there's a lot going on, and sessions go on throughout the day. I mean, there's breaks, but it is chock full of information, and people are just there to learn. Randy, for people that want to keep track of what you've learned at HPA and learn about your website in general, where can they go on the web? They could go to postperspective.com, and they could also follow me on Twitter at postperspective. We have been tweeting about the show. Very cool. Randy, thanks for joining us today.
To read more from Randi Altman, visit postperspective.com. Still to come on The Buzz. When you're working with media, one thing is essential. Your computer needs peak performance. However, when it comes to upgrading your Mac, there are so many different options to choose from that the process can be confusing. That's why Otherworld Computing carries the best upgrades that lets your computer performance and storage grow as your needs grow. Since 1988, OWC has become one of the most trusted names in quality hardware and comprehensive support to the worldwide computer industry. With an extensive online catalog of Mac, iPhone, and iPad enhancement products, as well as a dedicated team of knowledgeable experts providing first-rate tech support, OWC has everything you need to take your current system to the next level. Whether you need to maximize your system's memory, add blazing speed, or enhance reliability, look no further than the friendly experts at OWC. Learn more by visiting macsales.com today. That's macsales.com.
Ned Soltz is an author, editor, educator, and consultant on all things related to digital video. He's also a contributing editor to Digital Video Magazine, a moderator on 2Pop and Creative Cow forums, and best of all, a regular correspondent here on The Buzz. Hello, Ned. Welcome back.
Hi, Larry. It's good to be back, and we've got to add one more thing to the credits now.
I'm afraid to ask.
Once again, I've just started writing once again for RedSharkNews.com.
You have got to practice getting more sleep, Guy. This is just ridiculous.
Sleep is overrated.
Ned, just when I thought it was safe to get back into the water, the whole camera section of our industry seems to be going wild. What's going on?
It's going absolutely crazy. It is too segmented. I've said it on this show. I've said it in print. There are just too many cameras, and there is absolutely too much confusion. So what I'd like to try to do with you tonight is maybe in our discussion, we can sort of flesh out what are the different segments of the camera market. Who are they targeted toward, and what type of user should look toward what specific type of camera, if not specific brand.
I think that's a perfectly good idea. And I want to start with the action camera market, because recently GoPro ran into some headwinds when sales didn't meet expectations. Does this mean the action cam market is in trouble?
The action cam market is again segmented because you've got the GoPro. Now you've got the DJI Osmo, which, although not necessarily waterproof, is really taking the camera world by storm in that action camera market because of that wonderful built-in gimbal. I think GoPro stumbled as well because you sort of reach a point where you get market saturation. Now, there are a couple of others. Let me see if I can reach over right here. Here it is. Let me hold up the box right here. This is an AEE S71T action camera. Let's see if we can get this here without the reflection of my light.
You are just incredible holding props up. You and Vanna White, I think, are two.
Oh, yes, I tell you, she's got better legs. That's the difference. Nonetheless, that's an example of it. That's a 2.7K camera. It's not a 4K camera like the GoPro, but it has a longer battery life, better Wi-Fi connectivity. Then there's another little one, which I've got packed away in a box right now that I can't find, which is called eCamera. And this is actually a couple of young entrepreneurs and engineers in Shenzhen. And you've really got to admire these kids. They started with a Kickstarter campaign. Big camera dealer Adorama kicked some money into that. And they produced a camera with a micro four thirds sensor, a micro four thirds adapter. And we're talking something barely larger than the GoPro. I've been testing it. There were some firmware issues with the first revision of the firmware, and it wasn't auto-focusing with a little Panasonic pancake lens that I had on it, but they said, please don't say anything bad about it until we reissue the firmware. So I think the firmware is now fixed, and that's a cute little camera. It's about $500. It's segmented, it's niched. All the other dealers have it other than Adorama. But I mean, GoPro's got competition right now, and they've got market saturation.
So the action camera segment may not be dead, but we're seeing that it's starting to max out in terms of market penetration.
Exactly, and I was going to add as well, Sony just introduced a new action camera at CES. There's rumors that there's a 4K action camera due from Sony at some near point. I think it's segmented. And that's why GoPro is seeing a drop in sales.
Okay, so we've got the action camera segment. Would you consider DSLR a segment or a function?
DSLR is a segment, which I believe is dead in terms of future development, because I think it's moving more toward mirrorless right now.
Now,
particularly.
Well, slow down. You've given me two big things. You think it's dead simply because of the removal of the mirror, or dead because video cameras are responding?
I think it's dead because video cameras are responding, and I'm not seeing any great innovations coming along right now in the DSLR world. I mean, that doesn't mean that people are going to immediately throw away their Canon 7Ds and Canon 5Ds. You still see a lot of those out there being shot, and they're still producing very good work. But they're really not going too terribly much further. As an example, today Canon announced the 80D, which again is sort of in the high enthusiast price range, let's put it that way, at a $1,200 price point for body only. And the really only innovation right now in terms of their video is it's going to do 1080 60p as opposed to 1080 30p. And that's about the extent of it. And even in the Canon 1DX Mark II, the $5,000 plus camera they just introduced a couple of weeks ago, that's going to have 4K internally, but it's still with a motion JPEG codec. So it's really a high-end still camera that has some incidental video capabilities. We're not seeing the development, and Nikon's not been behind it. But on the other hand, Sony is just going absolutely great guns with their mirrorless cameras.
Okay, hold it.
Panasonic GH4. Yeah.
Hold it, stop. I want to get to mirrorless like in 20 seconds, but just a quick answer. Do you think that the DSLRs are being constrained in terms of development because they're recording to the chip? Because the chip itself doesn't have a high data transfer rate. Do you think that's constraining them?
I don't think it is, because the mirrorless cameras are recording 4K 60 to these SDXC chips.
Okay, so what makes mirrorless so attractive?
Because they're a smaller form factor, because the mirror really isn't that essential anymore, because you'd really rather see an electronic viewfinder rather than something that's optical and get a better view of what you're looking at. As well, because more and more now, particularly with Sony and Panasonic as well, you have various kinds of logarithmic recording options that are there, and you want to be able to view it either log, or you want to be able to apply a LUT to it, and that requires the electronic viewfinder. Greater versatility, and because you're taking that mirror out, which is unnecessary, you can have a shallower flange depth of lens and have much more adaptability to different lenses of differing manufacturers with the mirrorless camera. But also the size factor is a major factor.
Well, in a second, I want to talk about, say, 4 different categories of shooting and help you pick the right camera for each category. But I was thinking, the big buzz that's going on now at HPA is the impact of high dynamic range video.
Yes.
Are you seeing cameras starting to take HDR into account? And what do you think the impact of HDR is going to be on camera technology?
Already, so many of these cameras are already shooting dynamic ranges of 12, 14, 15 stops. I think that's pretty much been there for a while. I mean, even the Sony F3 several years ago was still shooting between 12 and 14 stops of dynamic range. So the dynamic range has already been built into those cameras. But now we're seeing cameras designed more and more for it. I mean, my favorite that was just announced in the recent days is the new Panasonic VariCam LT. In that higher market segment, I'm really big on that, and they are really looking to that for HDR production. But the question now is more HDR delivery. And I believe we will begin to see that in consumer sets over the next couple of years. Specifically with at last NAB, we were raising that same question. Do we want more pixels or better pixels? And if I had the choice of more pixels or better pixels, I'd take a look at better pixels.
And I would agree too. I think once you see HDR, resolution becomes irrelevant. But here's the question then: if cameras are shooting HDR video, because you're saying they've got the extra stops of dynamic range, why aren't we seeing it in our pictures?
Well, we're not seeing it in our pictures because the display technology is still catching up to it, because we still haven't exactly standardized on an HDR standard. So there are several competing standards that are out there. And SMPTE has not made its decision in terms of what it wants to cast its fate with. And we've got Dolby, we've got Sony, and at the moment I'm not up to what every single standard is and what those technological differences, electronic differences might be. But we first need the standard, then we need the manufacturers to begin to bring that to market. And the manufacturers already have conflicting signals because we're trying to move to 4K. At the same time, we're trying to think about 8K down the road, which isn't that far down the road. And then HDR comes into the picture. And what are the manufacturers actually going to do and promote? And then how is that content going to be delivered? So that's going to take a couple of years to work itself out.
Okay, so I want to discuss 4 different shooting scenarios in the time that we've got left. Which camera would you recommend for action or outdoor shooting?
I still like GoPros.
Still GoPro.
I still like GoPro. I still like the sensor. I still like the whole ecosystem of GoPro. I like the versatility. I even like the little GoPro Studio app, which gets it into a cineform codec. And flattens out the image. It's ProTune if you really want to shoot its version of log. I'm still big on GoPro in that action camera segment. Okay.
How about run and gun videography?
Ooh, you got a lot of options there, and it's all going to depend upon your particular budget. I like the Sony FS5.
Which is what? How much in price?
That's about in the $6,000 range.
Okay.
The FS7, the $8,000 range. But the FS5 is a wonderful run and gun camera.
Okay. How about weddings?
Weddings, I would still go for that Sony FS5. Something that could be run and gun in weddings too is the JVC 300. That just doesn't get enough love. I think it's a magnificent camera. JVC just isn't getting the love that it deserves with it, particularly because of its streaming capabilities, which are about the strongest of cameras in that segment. I think also good for weddings might be the Panasonic DVX200. That as well is not getting enough love. It's a different kind of camera. It's a micro four thirds sensor. It's fixed lens, but it is doing 4K. And we still shouldn't forget in the wedding segment the Canon C100s, because that still has excellent autofocus capability, although a little long in the tooth on codec.
Okay, scripted filmmaking.
Scripted filmmaking, well, low budget. I would never count out Blackmagic. I mean, if you're doing scripted filmmaking and you're really at a very, very low budgetary point of view, you can coax some wonderful images out of the Blackmagic cameras of all size. If budget is no object at all, still the Arri Alexa is king, and a Mira is a close second to that Alexa. But I also really like the Sony F55s, which Sony keeps enhancing, but that Vericam LT from Panasonic, I think, has just tremendous potential, both in scripted as well as B cameras to larger, more expensive cameras, and as well to higher-end documentary and field production work. That's an amazing piece.
I've been taking notes. These are wonderful. What I'm most interested in is, with the exception of the Arris and the Vericams, most of the cameras you're recommending are below 10K, true?
I think so. Yeah, I think you can get a lot of camera below 10K. To put in my personal plug, I own a Sony FS7. So here we've got an $8,000 camera with the $2,000 back for ProRes or for batteries. And for 10K, I consider myself as having a very decent production camera that's used a lot, whether I shoot it or rent it out to folks in a lot of corporate work. It's been used in some scripted work. My FS7's been used by MTV. For concert work, I think it's a very versatile camera, and at $10,000, it's delivering a magnificent image. And that's not the only one in that $10,000 range that can do it. In other words, I think it's the technology is there in all price ranges, and now it's just the creativity of the operator.
We've got about a minute left. So the question I want to wrap up with is, what's the most important criteria to keep in mind when you're deciding which camera to use for your next project? What's like the first top 3 things to think about?
How much budget do you have? What do you want to spend? What do you want to achieve in terms of final deliverable product? And finally, what are your total production workflows going to be in terms of media delivery, ease of use, the whole pipeline. But certainly, I think your budget is the first, because all the cameras are good. You really have to look at your budget and then assess which camera fills the need the best, and which image you like the best personally. They're all good images. Which image do you like better?
So we look at the budget, we look at image quality, we look at deliverable, and we look at workflow.
Workflow, yeah.
Ned, for people that want to keep track of all this stuff, this has been a great segment. Where can they go on the web to see what you're thinking today?
Well, you can first of all look at redsharknews.com or creativeplanetnetworks.com or tvtechnology.com. Those are the 3 sites in which my writing will appear.
Red Shark and TV Technology and Creative Planet?
And Creative Planet, yes.
Yes. There's just no rest for the wicked. Ned Soltz, contributing editor for just about everybody that has print. Ned, thanks for joining us today. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Larry. Always a pleasure.
And you take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Still to come on The Buzz.
Imagine Products has been specializing in workflow applications for over 25 years. They started with Executive Producer back in 1991, an all-in-one logging and offline editing tool. In 2006, Image Mine was used in the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics, and ShotPut Pro was released. Today, there are more than 30,000 ShotPut Pro users worldwide. Pre-roll post for Macintosh was released in 2012. This is an LTFS archiving application compatible with any LTO tape drive, as well as Sony's ODA. Pre-roll post for Windows was released at the end of 2015. It's the only LTFS archiving application of its kind for less than $500. Imagine Products has 3 simple goals for its software: make it powerful, make it easy to use, and make it affordable. It's easy to see why Imagine Products has been successful for 25 years. Imagine what comes next. Visit imagineproducts.com to download a demo.
Serena Catania is the supervising producer of The Buzz. She's also an independent filmmaker and has been for a long time, as well as one of the co-founders of Sundance. And we've got her off in the wilds of Europe somewhere, checking out a new film festival. Hello, Serena. Welcome back.
Hi, Larry. I'm actually not even back yet. I'm still in Berlin.
No, but you're back on The Buzz, which is all I care about. So what's happening in Berlin?
Well, it started to snow a little bit today on my way home, I can tell you that. You know, one of the things that strikes me about the Berlin Film Festival is how hard my fellow journalists work. There are thousands of us here, literally thousands of us, and nobody's getting any sleep, me included. So by the time we hit this sort of a little bit past the halfway mark, we're all a bit catatonic. But typical day is probably I get up around 3 or 4 in the morning, and after having taken a nap for 3 or 4 hours, and then I'll work on doing my writing, do the research for the upcoming day, watch the trailers for the films we're going to see, and then I'm usually out the door by about 7 o'clock, and I take 2 buses to the Potsdamer Platz, and the first screening starts at 9, and I'll see a minimum of 3 films a day with 3 press conferences to go with them.
The Berlinale is going on now, correct?
Yes, it is.
And as a journalist, what are you screening the films to write about them? Are you screening them as an independent producer to look at their techniques? What are you looking at when you go to the film? And then I want to take a look at what happens at a press conference. But what's your goal here?
Okay, several things. The main reason for me to come to Berlin is its pure love of film, as I've mentioned before in The Buzz. These films are actually, Berlin tends to be a more political festival, I should say, than the other festivals, like Sundance. People at Sundance are very concerned about what actors are in the movies. Here in Berlin, they talk about the directors and the message of the films. So I'm here to watch the movies, see what's being selected, and use that as research for future films that I and my friends might be working on, and just get a better feel for the international market, and then just enjoy the films, because these are films that you may or may not ever see in the United States. Most of them do get distribution. If they make it to the competition at Berlinale, most of these films will get distribution. They may or may not get a wide distribution, but it's nice to watch them. And I learn from these amazing directors that have these some of them are works of art, some of them are more commercial. So it's a learning process for future distribution, and it's just the love of the art.
All right, so let's shift behind the scenes. What happens at a press conference?
Well, you literally have to run from the Palast Theater over to the Hyatt Hotel, where the press conferences are on the 2nd floor. And you have to run because there are only a few hundred seats in there, and there's thousands of people in that theater. So you run and you try to get a seat, and then they have the people from the films there. It's very well attended here at the Berlinale. For a film called Genius, we had the director, we had the actors, we had the producers. So they're lined up, they're at the podium, and then we all just ask our questions. The Germans are incredibly organized about the way they handle the press conferences because they're all taped, so we have access to the tapes of the conference afterwards. We also have headphones that we can pick up that allow us to listen into whatever our language is. You can listen to it in French, in German, in Portuguese, in English, in the Asian languages, because there's people there from all over the world. So we ask our questions. They usually last about an hour. And there's a photo call beforehand for all the still photographers. So then the videographers come in and they stand in the front line and they get all of their video, and some of the stills get taken, and then they move out and the reporters start asking their questions.
Serena, what are some of the typical questions that reporters ask? Is it pretty vacuous, or is there some meat into the questions?
No, I'm telling you, these journalists are very well educated. They understand the history of film, and they also take the message of the film, and so the room tends to get very political. Spike Lee and his group stayed quite a while, actually, and we're talking about how violent America is and how many people get killed every day in America, and, why he made the film. And it got into the politics of violence in American communities, which actually brings me to another point. The American government is really the evil empire in a lot of these movies this year. I'm a bit shocked by that. Not completely surprised, but I guess the word I would use is a bit sad.
What are you seeing in terms of the films? You've mentioned it already that Berlinale tends to be more political than other film festivals are. Are you seeing themes emerge aside from the evil empire? Are you seeing other themes emerge from the films?
Yes, absolutely. One that comes to mind immediately is Fire at Sea, which is up on the top of my list. It's actually a documentary, and it's about the island of Lampedusa, and it's directed by Gianfranco Rosi. It is a heartbreaking documentary about the immigrants as they land and are brought off the ships and everything that they go through to make those voyages, juxtaposed against the island life and all these people who are completely just unaware of what's happening, or if they are aware, they just don't care. And I think the director wanted to make that point, that there can be a life being lived that's so difficult by these immigrants, and we're just, we're making pasta and we're playing music and we're a little kid off for a stroll on the beach trying out his play toy gun.
Serena, there's another film that I've heard about called Genius. Tell me about that.
That's Michael Grandage's film. It's a wonderfully made film about Thomas Wolfe and the editor that worked with him for so many years to help him get his books out when no one else would publish them. There was a movie that I saw today called 0 Days about the Stuxnet virus from another documentary filmmaker that's very well respected here in Berlin. His name is Alex Gibney. And that is a frightening, frightening film about how dangerous cyber warfare is, and also the American role in that, which was very surprising. I'm trying to think of some more political movies. Oh, there was another movie that would be very controversial in the United States. It probably would even get an X rating. It was called Quand on a 17 ans. It's about being 17, and it's a coming-of-age film about two young boys who discover that they're gay, and it's quite graphic. In our country, it would be anyway. There's another film called Letters from War. So you have all subjects. You're dealing with war. You're dealing with sexuality. You're dealing with abortion. You're dealing with violence, immigration issues. It's pretty intense.
As a filmmaker, what are you learning? What techniques are you seeing that you want to borrow for your own films?
I don't know if it's technique so much as inspiration. I have to tell you that watching Mahana, and I wish I knew the name of the cinematographer, but the Lee Tamahori film about the Maori tribes, every single shot in that movie was beautiful. It reminded me of years ago in the late 70s watching Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven for the first time in a big theater. And we don't have that very much anymore. With these smaller digital cameras, we can get beautiful images. But this movie is very cinematic, and it's just huge. It's just every shot is gorgeous. It's well lit, and it didn't take away from the story. I guess you could say that's my big takeaway, is reinforcing two things. The story is very important, and the visuals are very important, but if they don't go together, then you've got a mess.
Before we talk about more movies, one of the thoughts that struck me is it sounds to me like filmmakers should make an effort to attend film festivals. Whether they can make the trip to Berlin or not is different. But it seems to me that there's a huge educational component to a film festival that would benefit any filmmaker. Is that a true statement?
I absolutely believe that so much, Larry. I think you hit it right on the nail. We need to respect and appreciate and enjoy our craft. There's a lot of talk about the business, which is very important, of course. You want to know how to sell your films. But sometimes you just need to just enjoy who you are as an artist and make a good product. And when you get inspired by these beautiful movies that we're seeing, or even by a movie that's awful but still somehow gets you to think about life, I think that's very important.
I was just looking at the schedule for the Berlinale, and there's this block on tomorrow's schedule. It's an 8-hour film. What's this?
I know, I looked at my schedule when I first got here, and I thought I had tomorrow off. I thought, there's only one movie. It turns out it's an 8-hour movie. We're going to be in the theater for 9 hours with an hour break in between. It's a Filipino movie. I can't pronounce it in Filipino, but the English translation is Lullaby to the Sorrowful Mystery. So I hope it doesn't put me to sleep. But it is the mythological exploration of the history of the Philippines. And it's in black and white, very high contrast. And, a lot of us are talking about, do we really want to sit for 8 hours to watch one movie on the one hand, but on the other hand, it really feels like an event, and I'm kind of anxious to see whether or not it's going to be enjoyable.
I'm really curious if they've simply abrogated their editing responsibility and said, we can't make a decision. We're going to force you to watch all the dailies, or whether there's a big enough story there that's sustained for 8 hours. But it seems to me within the first half hour, you'd know if it's going to be worth investing your time in.
Yeah, we've actually all said we're going to sit through part of it, and if it's really bad, we're just going to go out to lunch and go finish our reviews. We have to write all our reviews.
What's the headline of your next article going to be?
Well, I think I'm going to talk about the American government as the evil empire here in Berlin.
An interesting story. Serena, for people that want to keep track of all the stuff that you're writing and your thoughts on the film festival, where can they go on the web?
Go to filmvault.biz or thecataniagroup.com.
And the Film Vault, all one word, filmvault.biz or thecataniagroup.com. And Serena Catania is the supervising producer of The Buzz and traveling to Berlinale. Serena, thanks so much for joining us today. Enjoy the festival and have a safe trip home.
Thanks, Larry. See you next week.
Still to come on The Buzz. Welcome to Tech Talk.
So we've already dragged our file across. Oh, it's the wrong file. How do I get rid of this? Highlight it, hit the delete key. It says, are you sure you want to get rid of it? Because there has to be one compression setting applied to a clip. If I delete the compression setting, it deletes the clip. Well, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to change, no, not compressed files. Up here, media. Let's drag our dance back in again, close this file, pull it over. To change a setting, simply grab the setting you want and drag it on top. Notice that as I change it, the existing setting changes color. As soon as it changes color, you're going to replace it. To add a setting, drag it on top of the file name. There's the file name. There's the, I want a third one. Drag it on top of the file name. Now we've got 3 settings. Highlight the setting you don't want, hit the delete key, press yes. If it's the last compression setting, it will make the clip disappear. If there's multiple compression settings, it just deletes the compression setting. To change where the file gets stored, double-click it, and this allows me to specify a different destination. Notice by it goes to compressed files, because that's what I set as the default in preferences. And let's just grab this header over here. Notice that there's a thing called status. This shows you the compression status of the file. We'll talk about that more in just a second. Let's just make this a YouTube one pass, put it right there. Once you've got the setting applied, once you've got the location set, you click the right pointing arrow, and down here at the bottom, there we go, it will show us the compression. And because this is one pass, it shows how much time is left, allows us to see what's going on in terms of what the settings are and what the movie is that we're compressing, and then it goes away. This is from a webinar of about a month ago talking about editing dance and music videos. I've now screwed up my layout because I got carried away dragging. I'm just going to go to Workspaces, reset the default workspaces. It says yes, and we're back again. But what happens if I say, oh, that was the wrong thing. I need to recompress it. Notice it says done, and the green arrow doesn't work. Just hold the control key down, click on the word done, and say reset status, and now it's ready to recompress. So just control click or right mouse click and reset the status back to ready. Or if you've stopped it because you click this red square. Well, we've seen how we can apply settings. We twirl down, for instance, broadcast here. There's the H.265 codec, which is now called HEVC, High Efficiency Video Codec. And we could twirl this down and drag a 4K codec on here. Now, you'll only get this warning once. It says HEVC codec must be installed to use this feature. Clicking OK will install and enable this codec for immediate use. Notice there's no they don't give you a choice. So I'm going to click OK here, and now it's going to, in the background, install the H.265 codec such that AME can compress the file. But I can't play the file. It doesn't install a playback codec. It just installs a compression codec. So I can compress it, but I can't view it unless I load it up into Premiere. Aaron Rabinowitz is the head of marketing for Red Giant and the executive producer of Red Giant Films. And as always, I'm delighted to say welcome back, Aaron. It's good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Aaron, the big news, which was announced just scant seconds ago, is the new Shooter Suite 13. What's in this new version?
Well, the biggest thing about it is Pluralize 4. And I have to say that Pluralize is very near and dear to me because I was at a trade show once, and I was sitting next to Bruce Sharp, the person who created it. And, you know, I saw it. He showed it to me. It was amazing. And I went to the powers that be at Red Giant, and I said, you know, I just saw this amazing thing. I could really use a license of this. And then a few years later, they basically bought the company. And I was like, just one license was all I wanted. Pluralize, I have to say, is probably the closest thing to magic that Red Giant sells. It does audio video sync. It does it in seconds. And it's just an amazing product. And, you know, for the last, few weeks, as I've been more involved in as the head of marketing, and, I've been involved in it from the beginning, but like they told me all these things are coming to it. When you finally see them in action, I didn't think that we could really improve the product, but it's a major overhaul.
Wait. I'm confused here. So let's just slow down a second. Mm-hmm. We can sync clips in multicam and compound clips in Premiere, and we can sync them in Final Cut. Why would we even want Pluralize?
It's a great question, and I think the answer is this. If you try Pluralize, the first thing I'll say is you try Pluralize, you'll see the difference instantly. It always works. There's no complications. What this version does in particular is you have a folder full of files. You don't know what's linked together, what's not. You just drag them all into, whether it's Premiere Pro or you drag it directly into Pluralize, and you hit sync, and it figures out what devices things came from, and it creates new tracks for each of those things. So you don't have to be organized at all. There are a few cases where that may not be the case, but for the most part, no thought has to go into it. You just drop the stuff in. Pluralize does it instantly. It's like a few seconds for a sync. You get visual feedback as it's going. You know exactly what's happening. It's not like some kind of black box where you're not sure why things are happening. And there are all these different algorithms that Pluralize can use. Let's say your clips aren't in order, or the sound's not loud enough. It can do all these things. And while it's always been able to do these things, the new version does it automatically. The user doesn't have to try to guess anymore what it can do. This will look at the sound, look at the video, and it will figure it all out and just spit out what you need when it's done. Yes.
Now, there's a new feature you've got called Smart Start.
Yeah.
I read that twice. I'm still not clear what it does because I don't think it can do it. What is it?
Yeah. Smart Start, literally you can drag a folder full of media and drop it into Pluralize, and it will figure out which media came from which device and create new tracks for that. So you can drop folders in, just whole folders, and it will create tracks based on that folder structure. But the moment you hit sync, it will begin to look at all that media, and it will figure out whether or not that media even belongs there, and it will begin to arrange it properly.
Okay, so let's just follow this through. I'm recording on a DSLR camera, which, as we know, has terrible audio, and I'm recording on a Zoom H4n. Okay,
Yeah.
so I've got the Zoom, which has got audio files in its own little folder structure, and I've got the Canon, which has got video files in its own little folder structure, and Pluralize is going to magically find the right audio file to go with the right audio?
Yeah, so assuming that you've offloaded that stuff onto your computer, right, because you have to bring it onto your machine, and then you drag those files in. It depends if you've offloaded them all into one folder, which is never an ideal solution, but if you happen to have done that and you just dump that into Pluralize, Pluralize will immediately figure out what's what and arrange things. It will put them in order based on the audio. It will, it'll also just check. There's one other thing that's really special about Pluralize that nothing else in the universe that I know does. There's a problem. Hey, there's a problem that users find that I found also. I never understood what it was a long time ago before Bruce had sort of explained this to me, but there is this problem that audio devices and video devices don't always record at exactly the same speed. You experience something called audio drift, and it could be just a couple of frames off, but it becomes very obvious as time goes on where people begin to not have their mouth match up with the audio. And you can't sync with that. That's unsyncable. But Pluralize can actually catch that and stretch and compress things as needed to be to make it work perfectly.
Aaron, I was just thinking, Pluralize is a standalone application. So we've got to quit out of our editor, do Pluralize, get back into our editor. Can we do anything to simplify that?
This time around, there's been some really nice integration with Premiere Pro. So in the past, where there was like a script that you'd run within Premiere Pro that would send it over to Pluralize. Now we just have a panel that opens in Premiere Pro that you just hit synchronize, and it does the synchronization right there in Premiere Pro. And if you wanted to send it over to Pluralize, maybe you want more visual feedback, you could do that too. But the best thing about that is that it doesn't actually move your files around and mess up your timeline. It creates a duplicate timeline that is just a synced version of that so that you can go back to your original without having any kind of damage to it. So it's just a lot more of an effortless sort of kind of situation for anybody who's editing in Premiere Pro.
Now, this is part of Shooter Suite 13. Is there anything else in the suite that we need to pay attention to besides Pluralize?
So there are other products in the suite. The most notable is Offload, which is actually now works with Pluralize. So Offload is a product that you use to just back up your footage, whether it's in the field or right when you return home, right? You get back to your station where you're working, you add it, you take your card, you connect it to your computer, and then offload with just a couple of you just set it where you want it to copy from and where you want it to go. Offload will copy it and also make an additional duplicate so you have a backup. And the way that works now is Pluralize will detect any offload events that you've done, and you can just click a button and tell Pluralize to bring in all that media, and it will then sync it all up. And then you can just send it right out to your editor.
Well, I was just reflecting. You guys have had a lot of new announcements. You've got Shooter Suite 13, which was announced like this week. But you also have done some stuff to Trapcode. What's happening over with Trapcode?
Well, Trapcode, we released at the end of last year, Trapcode Sweet 13, major upgrade to the Trapcode Suite. What I will tell you is that the thing that I found that people have responded to most about Trapcode Suite 13 is Trapcode particular. We added a new user interface that we didn't really change the features of Trapcode particular, but it turned out that people weren't using some of the best stuff because it's buried so deeply in Trapcode, and some of it's very complex. And so by creating this user interface that's a little bit like Magic Bullet looks in the sense that you drag in things you want to use, and then you play with the values there, and you get results, it's very visual. It's very artist-driven instead of being numbers and sliders and things like that. So you basically have the power of Trapcode particular that's always been there, but now it's actually just really easy to use and fun to use, and you get real-time feedback pretty much. It depends on what you're doing. You can't get some of you're not going to get real-time for everything, but you can actually see what you're doing, and you're making slider changes and value changes and color changes, and it all happens right in front of you.
Red Giant's been in the plug-in business since forever, helping to define plugins in the first place. Are you seeing more interest in things like Trapcode, which are creating effects, or more things like utilities and pluralize and offload, which are helping us deal with media? Where's the interest now?
You know, I got to tell you, it's almost split right down the middle there, what you've just described. Pluralize is probably, our most popular single item product. So like if you were to say like Trapcode Sweet is a product full of many products, right? Pluralize in and of itself, if there were shelves, they would be flying off of them. People just love it. It solves a problem. I've learned this. There's only one thing you can never have back in life, and that is time. You can make money and you can do a lot of things. Maybe sleep's another one. I don't know. But time is something you can't have back, and Pluralize really gives that to you. It does in seconds what would take hours or even days, and that we see as a tremendous attractor. On the other hand, visual effects and motion graphics, I have found that, through my interactions with After Effects users, I ran a group called After Effects New York a long time ago. I find After Effects users are more passionate about what they do than almost anyone else I've met. I know people love editing and they love making films, but I have found that people who create something from nothing, there's just another kind of way of thinking there. And Trapcode has been that kind of thing for them. It's a tool that they rely on because it lets them create something from nothing.
Thinking of something that came from nothing reminds me, about 2 years ago, you guys released Red Giant Universe, which was your subscription-based program. How's that doing?
It's doing great. At the end of last year, we released version 1.6. We started in 2014 with 50 effects, and 1.6 brought us to 100. A total of 100 effects. It's constantly growing. It's full of a lot of great stuff. I'll tell you, for me, I have some fun ones that I love in there. There's one called VHS, which I see everywhere. Saturday Night Live. I see it on tons of TV shows and commercials where it creates the look of VHS, which is so funny. We're in this digital age, and people, they just want to go back to the way things used to be. But VHS is a great one. There's one called Retrograde, which gives it the look of 35 millimeter film. And, they're very authentic. We worked with the guys at Crumple Pop to capture all of the actual real elements that help make these things look real. So great stuff to look at.
Why would I have Universe and buy Trapcode? Or why would I have Universe and buy Pluralize? Aren't they the same thing?
Got it. Good question. Red Giant Universe is a set of tools, right? It's a very specific set of tools for the editor. And Pluralize is a different product, and it's not part of Red Giant Universe. And Trapcode is obviously something for motion graphics and visual effects people. So it's Universe has a little bit of stuff in there for everybody, but really it's for editors who are turning stuff around very quickly. It runs on the GPU. It gives lots. There's like I said, 100 different kinds of effects you use, a lot of transitions, things like that. I think a lot of wedding people doing event videography, people doing TV show just cuts for interesting things that are trying to transition between shots. Those are the kinds of things you'll find people doing with Red Giant Universe. I'd even venture to say that if I had to define Magic Bullet versus Red Giant Universe are for people who really are editors, who consider themselves editors and they're everyday cutting. And I'd say that Magic Bullet is one of those things for kind of across the board, but filmmakers, someone who defines themselves as a filmmaker might find themselves using Magic Bullet more than they might find themselves using Red Giant Universe.
Which gets me to the last thing I want to talk with you about before we run out of time today. The second half of your title is the executive producer of Red Giant Films. Having seen your latest action adventure, which is just really cool, why are you guys shooting films?
It's really, there's so many reasons to do it, but I'm not going to lie. The reasons we love making films, but there's a great value for us in the product area, which is we use our products to make our films, which means we can show them off, and we learn about the process of filmmaking and what we can do better in terms of making products, and things get born out of that. The Trapcode, the last version of Trapcode, we actually created a bunch of stuff in there for the project we were working on called Go Bag. We needed gun muzzle flashes and things like that, and dirt and all these different things, and there weren't these kinds of features in there that would make it easy to do. So that got put into the product because we know it's the kind of thing lots of people are doing, and we learned that. We learn that by doing it ourselves. So it's all around, from showing off the products to helping us make the products. It's a really great experience all around.
Not that you don't have any fun putting the film together in the first place.
Oh, my God. It's like my favorite part of my job. I love it.
Tell me about what Go Bag is for people that haven't seen it.
Go Bag is a short film directed by Seth Worley, who's directed most of our short films. It's a story of a young spy who, after a mission that may or may not have gone bad, it's not really clear, she accidentally switches her go bag, the bag of tools that she uses to stay out of trouble, guns and passport and money. She switches it with somebody else, and she has to defend herself with things like a selfie stick and and like deodorant and things like that. So can she survive fighting bad guys with what people keep in their normal go bag, in their normal everyday carry-on bag?
It is a well done piece with explosions, and it's a low-budget film that has a high-budget look. You did a really nice job with that.
Thank you. I've definitely passed on to Seth, who is just an amazing guy to work with. And, I consider myself lucky just to be around the people at Red Giant in general, because they're so talented, and they put thought into everything that they do in making products and making films. And, I'm just blessed to have that.
So as an executive producer, what's your role?
Well, often I write the films with Seth. This one I did not, but a lot of it is just making sure that Seth has what he needs and then really just getting out of his way. The film before this, Old New, which was narrated by Patton Oswalt, Seth and I wrote together. It was probably the most fun I've ever had working on anything. I was just, he and I sending stuff back and forth, these rhymes, these funny jokes, and and then when Patton Oswalt agreed to narrate it, I think I may have cried a little bit, honestly. He just, he liked the film with just the temporary narration that Seth had put in. But for us, this process is just this amazing thing that kind of was born out of an idea to just show off what our products do, and it's become a very big part of the essence of what Red Giant is these days.
And for people that want to see the films, where can they go on the web?
Head over to redgiant.com/films. And tell them I sent you.
And for people that want to learn about the products that Red Giant's got, where can they go?
Just go to redgiant.com.
And Aaron Rabinowitz is the head of marketing for Red Giant, the executive producer for Red Giant Films at Red Giant, all one word, redgiant.com. Aaron, a wonderful chance to visit. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Larry.
It's time for a BuZZ flashback, 5 years ago today.
I don't think there are any key elements. I think it's just something that's unexpected, something that's memorable, something that you would want to share. The big difference with online is a lot of people watch by themselves, whereas we used to all sit around the TV or we'd get together and have parties. Now people tend to watch a lot of content individually, so you still want that sharing experience, though. So you're like, Charlie, you got to check this out.
This was a BuZZ flashback.
I was just reflecting on the diversity of tonight's show. We started first with Ned Soltz. What I was most impressed with Ned's comments saying that we just have too many cameras going after too many segments, and not only is there confusion, but no one particular camera is generating a whole lot of revenue, which doesn't help the developers and doesn't help us. But I was also impressed with his ideas on how to pick the best camera for the different projects we're working with, whether it's weddings or run and gun, or whether it's filmmaking, or whether it's news. Ned's got some really good ideas, and I enjoyed that segment a lot. I was also enjoying Serena's comment, supervising producer of the BuZZ, reporting from the Berlinale about how the theme tends to be politics and how there's a lot of active discussions about what's happening in the films in the press conferences following them. And Aaron always has great comments, director of marketing for Red Giant. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website, digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online, all available to you today. And please sign up for our free weekly show newsletter. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv to learn how they can help you. Our supervising producer is Serena Catania. Our producer is Debbie Price. Our production team is led by Megan Paulos and includes Ed Golia, Keegan Guy, James Miller, and Brianna Murphy. Megan Paulos is leaving us after tonight's show. The studio and this show are what they are because of her energy, her skills, and her enthusiasm. She is extraordinarily talented. On behalf of all of us at the BuZZ, we wish Megan the very best and let her know that you'll be missed. My name is Larry Jordan. Thanks for joining us for the Digital Production BuZZ.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Otherworld Computing, providing quality hardware solutions and extensive technical.
If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To stay connected and receive updates from the Buzz, sign up for our free weekly newsletter now. Or you can learn more about us on our website. And thanks for watching The Digital Production Buzz.